Welcome in. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in across the continent today for another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. And welcome back for many of you, too. This program, as some of you may know, is a repeat of one that we tried to do back in September. We did this epic 5-part program series in conjunction with our friends at OceanWise. Now, OceanWise is the best ocean education group in the world. Whether it's sustainable seafood, marine plastics, whale research, whatever you're keen on, they do more work than anyone to educate kids just like you about the challenges, the solutions, the excitement of our ocean realm. Now, the final program in that series was all about you, change makers, how you can make a positive difference on behalf of the oceans. And unfortunately, in the world of virtual broadcasting, sometimes the internet just dies, like at the beginning of the show. So that was very unfortunate. But today we're back with a lot of you from that broadcast and a few new faces in the crowd as well. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited to turn you over to our amazing educator, Mala. She is joining us live in Toronto, and she's going to take us a little bit of a journey about, again, what we can do for our ocean. So I'm going to zip it. Thank you so much for joining us again. And fingers crossed, everything's perfect with the tech today. Take us away.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I do got to say as well, I forgot how epic that intro is. I was listening to it that entire week and it was hyping me up, and it definitely got me in the right energy today. So thank you for that amazing intro video. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our final OceanWise session for that 5-part week. We apologize for the technical issues that we had the last time, but hopefully today we run into less issues. I'm super excited to be joining you all from Toronto, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of many different nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people. This land is also home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And before getting my program started, I did just want to acknowledge the land that I was coming to you all from and speaking to you all from, and also extend my thank you to the communities who have been here since time immemorial, taking care of our wonderful land, sea, and sky. One thing that I absolutely love about being an ocean educator is that I get to connect with people all around the world and talk to them about what I love most, which is our wonderful, wonderful ocean. So feel free to let me know where you're all tuning in from as well. I'm sure not all of you are from Toronto. So let me know where you're tuning in from, or even if you know your traditional territory, you can let me know that as well. As Jesse mentioned, my name is Mala. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm an educator and a coordinator for our education team at OceanWise. Two things about me. Two of my favorite ocean animals are whale sharks and nudibranchs. Nudibranchs are sea slugs, and they're found in almost every ocean, and they're super, super cool animals with really fun and colorful patterns and different colors that they have on their bodies. And whale sharks are just really, really cool. It's a dream of mine to see one of them in the wild one day. So hopefully I get to do that. As you guys are telling me where you're all from, I'd also like to ask you another question. I have a selection of wonderful animals here, and I would like to know which ocean animal you would be if you could pick one.
Okay, well, over the course of the series, I think I've been like half of these by now, but nudibranchs are pretty cool. I'm going to plug these, but so many people don't know them. We all know sharks. We all know whales. Look up nudibranchs or sea slugs, some of the most amazing, weird, beautiful creatures in the entire oceans of the world. I want to note, too, for our live and YouTube classes, we've got groups today in Boulder, Colorado, Toronto, Westfield, New York, Oregon, Ohio, all over Southern Ontario. I'm here in Newfoundland, so we have covered a lot of ground today. And a big welcome to all our classes. We've got shark coming in. We've got otter coming in. We got a few extra things. Anyone in our live groups that wants to chime in on the chat or YouTube, feel free to. But those are some pretty good answers to kick us off.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I always thought that I would probably, I love nudibranchs, but I feel like these days I'm feeling more like a jellyfish. I just kind of want to mellow out, just kind of relax and just kind of go along with the current of the ocean, not work too hard, you know. Being a jellyfish is pretty cool too. Thank you all so much for your answers. We have a really, really fun program for you all today. We would love the interactivity. Again, as Jesse mentioned, feel free to message us in the chat or on YouTube, wherever you're watching from. Send us your answers in the chat. I would like to introduce OceanWise a little bit. That's the organization I work for, and OceanWise is essentially a nonprofit organization that is focused on protecting and restoring our world's ocean. We're doing that by tackling 3 main issues that the ocean is facing. They include climate change, ocean pollution, and overfishing. We have a collection of teams that are all working incredibly hard together to make sure that we can tackle these issues and protect our ocean. We are working really, really hard to do what we can to protect our waterways. And, part of my job is to take a lot of data collected by our team and come and teach you all about it. So I'm on the education team, and today we are going to be talking a little bit more about climate change. So if you folks had the opportunity to tune into our program, that week-long programs, you would have remembered that our overarching theme was climate change. Climate change is something that is affecting the world all around, and it's affecting people all around the world as well. In today's program, we're hoping to wrap up that week. So today, we're going to look at 3 different things. We're going to take a look at what exactly climate change is. We're then going to highlight some of the effects that climate change has had on our ocean. And last but not least, we're going to explore some actions that we can take to protect the ocean. So while we're going through today's program, I want everybody to be thinking on the back of their minds, what are some effects of climate change on the ocean? And what are some things that we can do to reduce the effects of climate change on our waterways? But to open up today's program, I wanted to ask you all a question. I wanted you all to think about why water is so important to you. What does it symbolize to you?
Again, all our classes, you guys can write in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, both StreamYard and YouTube. I'll say for myself, of course, I drink water all the time. Every time I do broadcasts without this, I would sound like this. So you really do need water to live. I live on the ocean now. I used to live in Toronto with Mala, and now I'm on the west coast of Canada, or the east coast of Canada, the west coast of the east coast in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. So the ocean's where I get to live and work and play and go out and explore and walk and swim and kayak. And so all those things are so important to me. We're also a huge culture related to fishing. So the cod fishery is sort of the icon of how Newfoundland came to be in the first place. We need it to live coming in on YouTube. So water's pretty important. We need it to live is a pretty firm answer for why we need water. That's fantastic, guys.
Yeah, honestly, you gotta summarize it at the end there with the YouTube comment, just saying that we need water in order to live. Definitely we need water in order to live. As Jesse mentioned, we use water, to hydrate ourselves. We need to drink water. We need water to cook. We need water to, sanitize and clean. We also use it in our day-to-day activities for recreational purposes, like, surfing or fishing or kayaking, things like that. Water is also home to so many animals. There are billions of people around the world who rely on water, just for their source of food, because a lot of people will use seafood as their primary source of protein. Water is incredibly important to us, and it also connects all of us. It doesn't matter where you live on our planet. We're all connected to each other through our wonderful, incredible waterways, through our rivers and streams and lakes and our ocean. We all connect to each other through our ocean as well. So water is incredibly important to us. And for that reason, we use it a lot. We end up consuming and using a lot of water, which sometimes can have a really, really negative impact on our planet. So I have a really fun game that we're going to play today. It's called Higher or Lower. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to guess how much water it takes to sustain the current Western lifestyle on average, and how much water is used to produce a specific item. So I want you all, if you're on camera, you can show us higher or lower, or if you're joining us on YouTube or you just want to use the chat, you can give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down or tell us higher or lower. I will give you kind of like a prompt, and you can tell me if you think it takes more or less water to produce that item.
Okay.
All righty. So the first one here, a family of 3 uses 400 liters of water daily. What do we think? Could that be higher or lower? What do we think?
You know what? Our Jerusalem Elementary crew, if you guys want to unmute your mic, I can come to you to yell out what you think as a classroom for any of these. YouTubers, you can chime in too. But let's see. In Ohio, higher or lower? 400 liters. That's about 100 gallons of water daily. What do we think?
Higher.
A bit of both. A lot of people said higher. YouTube says lower. So mixed bag. I would say less than that, even though I should know better, and I think it's probably higher.
Oh, Jesse, I hate to disappoint you, but unfortunately, it is higher. We're using around 630 liters on average for a 3-person household, all right? So that's around 4 full bathtubs of water for just a 3-person family. So a lot of water is being consumed on average for a 3-person household. All right, next question here. Around 9,000 liters of water for 1 pair of jeans. That is insane. Do we think it could be almost like double the amount of water for 1 pair of jeans? What do you think, higher or lower?
What do we think? Ms. Collins class again. Feel free to keep that mic unmuted. I can speak. I think I'm going to say it's more than this personally because it was more for the first one, and I like trends like that. So just stick with the safe answer. What do we got? We've got higher. We've got higher. We've got lower. We've got higher. You're mixing everybody up. We don't know what's going on. Tell us more.
I don't think it helps that I keep tricking you, Jesse. This one is actually lower, thankfully, but it's not much lower. It's still a lot of water. It's around 7,600 liters for just 1 pair of jeans. It takes a lot of water to produce 1 pair of jeans. That's why it's important if you are purchasing this type of material, if you are purchasing denim, you do what you can to keep it really long lasting. Take care of your clothing so that way, it can last a longer time because it's using a lot of water to be produced. All right, next item here. Do we think it takes more or less than 50 liters of water for an egg?
One egg. Well, there's not much. There's certainly not 50 liters of water in that egg, unless you got like a really big, scary egg. Let's see. Miss Cullen's class, if you guys want to jump in, you're welcome to. And our YouTubers, Westfield Central, hi guys on StreamYard. What do we think?
We're not waiting. We're voting. Higher, lower.
Right, lower, and then we've got more. I've never seen a poll like this where we've had more classes that are the exact, like it's literally like 50-50 every time. I think more again.
I mean, I got everybody on their toes with this game. This one, unfortunately, my friends, is higher. It takes around 200 liters to produce 1 egg. Now, the way I want us all to think about this is essentially the amount of water that it's going to take to produce that egg. So that's not water is in an egg, of course, but that's how much water it's going to take to run a farm to, raise and feed a chicken that is then going to produce that egg. How much water is it going to take to, hydrate that chicken? How much water is it going to take to grow the produce that chicken is going to consume in order to be healthy enough to lay an egg, right? How much water is it going to take to build that shed, to provide it heating, all those things. So that is around 100 jugs of water to produce a single egg. So a lot of water is needed for an egg as well. All right, I believe this is the last one. Does it take more or less than 4,000 liters of water for 1 pound of beef? What do we think?
All right, let's see what we think. Again, we've been pretty mixed this whole time. I'm going to stick with my typical thing of saying more than that, but we'll see what we get from our audience. Miss Cullen's crew, if you guys want to chime in, and YouTubers. Oh, you taught them with the egg. I think everyone's on higher for this one finally.
They're like, if the egg's that much water, the beef has to be way more. And you would be absolutely correct. It is way higher. It is around 7,000 liters of water for a single pound of beef. And again, we're going to think about it the same way we were thinking about it for the chicken. How much water is it going to take to hydrate that cow, to, produce the food that the cow is going to eat, for the shelter, all those things. So water is really, really important to us because it is providing all of these different things to us, right? Like the food we're going to eat, the water we're going to drink, the clothing we're going to wear. Clearly, we use a lot of water, but in order to protect our ocean, we have to be careful with how much we're actually consuming and the effects that consumption can have on our ocean. High consumption levels are really, really influencing climate change. Throughout that week of programming, we were learning about unique and diverse ecosystems around the world. There's still so much more to explore and learn about our ocean. And hopefully you all learned something new during that week. But as different as our ocean may be around the world, it actually has a lot in common with each other. climate change is something that is affecting different ecosystems all around the world. It's severely impacting our ocean and affects animals, plants, organisms, and people around the world. A really important thing that you can do to help combat climate change is just raise your voice. But what exactly is climate change? My friends, climate change is a long-term change in global or regional climate average weather patterns. So that means that, it's the gradual progression and change in weather patterns. Too hot that one summer, but the next summer it goes back down to normal temperatures. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily climate change. Climate change means that it's getting, as time goes on, and we can see that it's getting worse. Climate change has affected a lot of different animals, and a lot of animals that we took a look at that week, right? It's affecting animals in the Arctic, in the reef, whales that like to climate change, pollution, and overfishing are just a few of the things impacting it. We rely on our ocean for so many different things. Our ocean is incredibly diverse and extremely beautiful. We use it as a source of water, food, medicine. It inspires cultures around the world, and it produces most of the oxygen that we breathe. Around 3 billion people worldwide rely on it as their primary source of food, and over 250 million people rely on it for their job and their career. And unfortunately, the ocean is facing a lot of different threats, some of which OceanWise is working towards solving. Now, that week, we had sent out a bunch of papers that were e-cards to create so that we could all create them together. I don't think anybody probably remembered, and unfortunately, that was probably our fault. We probably should have sent out a little blast reminding you all. But teachers, in case you do have it, feel free to print it for your classrooms afterwards, or maybe Jesse and I can send it to you all after the broadcast as well. It'll look like this, and what you can do is you can draw and create your own piece of artwork. Once you create that artwork, you can send Green Learn's QR code at the bottom of the paper, and you can submit it there so that the public can see what your message for the world is when it comes to climate change. These are some examples of what people have created in the past. People like to get really, really creative and, write some sort of message or create some sort of artwork to pretty much point out, what your message is to the world. Once you're done, again, you can submit it to Green Learning, and we can post it up for you all. And, hopefully some people see it and they feel motivated to do something about it through your artwork. So feel free to get creative, and we'd love to see what you're coming up with as well.
I just emailed a PDF of the e-cards to all our teachers. I know it's too late to print them off for today's broadcast, and our bad on that front. I really apologize, but you do have that. If you want to make anything after, please do send it to Green Learning, to us, to OceanWise. We'd love to get it up and share with our partners. So thanks for plugging that just the same.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, feel free to, tag Explore by the Seat of Your Pants in the paperwork as well, so we can see that it was from this broadcast. But we would love to see any artwork or any messages that you want to communicate out to the public about, climate change or about the world that you want to see. So get inspired and create something and, raise your voice. My friends, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different things that we can do to protect and restore our ocean. But before I give you any suggestions, I want to hear from you all. What do you think after that week long of programs, or even after today's program? What are some things that you want to do in your personal life, or, maybe with the collection of your friends and families, to help protect our ocean?
Amazing. Well, we're going to take, you guys have been a really involved audience, which is fantastic. Miss Cullen's class, again, if you want to unmute your mic, I'll come to you live. All our YouTube classes, please do share in the chat. We'll take all your thoughts on how we can help our ocean. This is something we've actually come to in all our OceanWise broadcasts, so I love when we get to talk about this. Miss Cullen, if you guys want to chime in, what can we do for our oceans?
Okay, who wants to give us one? Emmett, come on over here.
Clean up the trash in the ocean.
Yes, great answer. There's so many of your hands went up there. What other answers do you have?
All right.
Come on up.
Stop throwing your trash out of the car window.
Yes, definitely don't do that. That's a good thing to avoid all the time. Okay, so clean up trash, don't litter to begin with. We'll take one more, and then you guys can chime in as well. Hey.
We can cut the little holes that fish go in.
Yes, so if we got like a beverage, the rings, you cut them so the fish don't get
Like the
stuck.
popcorn.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. My family's been doing that for years. These are great answers, guys. All right, let's see what else we've got in the chat. Recycle. So a lot of trash-related things. These are really, really good answers. I'm so glad that your minds are going here because this is what I went to when I was a kid as well. Don't fish as much, or at least fish sustainably, and I'm sure we'll get to that. So these are awesome. If you want to keep sharing a little bit more, I think that's a great springboard to the rest of the program.
Yes, I cannot emphasize how much I absolutely love these answers. Thank you all so much for giving me these answers and letting me know that you're all thinking about things that you can do to protect our ocean. Absolutely, recycling, maybe, reduce the amount of fishing that we're doing or sustainably fish as an alternative, clean the ocean. All those things are wonderful things that we can do. On a personal level, though, some things that we can just at home and in our own lives to really, really help. I have these 3 suggestions. 1, we can reduce consumption. So earlier we played that game that kind of showing we're using to produce items. I'm not saying, we don't need jeans anymore or don't eat eggs anymore. That is not what I'm saying. Of course, we need to do those things. We need to stay healthy as well and take care of ourselves. But the idea is to reduce the amount that we're consuming. So only buy what you absolutely need. Try to reuse items every which way you can, and try to reduce, the amount of goods that we're buying that are imported, right? Try to buy locally. Buying locally reduces the amount of ships that we need to kind of travel back and forth to carry all of our goods. So that can really reduce the amount of carbon emissions that we're putting up. The next thing that we can do is learn and support. So join broadcasts like these and join other broadcasts that, Explore by the Seat of Your Pants is doing or other organizations are doing that are trying to teach you about what's going on around the world. Staying aware helps you stay, active, and it helps you come up with new ways to try and combat the issues that our Earth is facing. Last but not least, we can tell our friends and family what we learned today. So if you feel like you learned something new today, I'm super, super glad. But even if you didn't and you were refreshed or reminded about something you knew, you can take that information and share it amongst your peers and amongst your community. That way we can all keep the conversation going and collectively find solutions to help protect our ocean. My friends, that is all for me and my program today. Thank you all so much for joining in on today's session. And for any of the other sessions you joined in as well, I'd like to thank all of our partners for making it possible for us to do all this programming. If you enjoyed today's program and you're a teacher and you want to have us come into your classroom, you can see me there on a little iPad over there. You can feel free to book a virtual program with us on ocean.org/education. And we'd love to come in and teach your class about the ocean as well. Thank you all so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we're going to dive in with questions now. So anything you guys want to know about how you can make a difference, maybe some of the challenges our ocean is facing, water use for some things, everything that we covered today and more, we're going to dive in with a nice Q&A over the next 10 minutes or so. So Miss Cullen's class, our Westfield Central crew, you guys are in on StreamYard now, which is awesome. So please do share all your questions in the chat here. We had one come in just before you wrapped up there, which is about that sustainable seafood element. So we talked about not fishing or fishing differently. Can you explain a little bit about how people should view fishing in general? Because I think there's a lot of people that think that if we're fishing at all, we're depleting the ocean. It's a universal bad thing. It's something we've come to in a few of our broadcasts, and I want to clear some stuff up for our kids.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so when we talk about sustainable fishing, it's just about being mindful about the types of fish that we're consuming. So we can't stop fishing 100%. There are 3 billion people around the world that rely on only seafood for their primary source of protein. So if we stopped fishing, that would mean 3 billion people would go hungry because they don't have access to the same types of proteins that we do. But that being said, we in North America, we have access to different types of protein. So that means we can reduce the amount of seafood that we're consuming. Or if we want to continue eating seafood, then it's about being mindful about the seafood that we're eating. So one thing that we can do is buy sustainable seafood. Sustainable seafood is essentially seafood that has been deemed or kind of labeled as sustainable by different organizations. Oceanwise has a line of sustainable seafood. We essentially work and partner with different seafood brands, and we will do the research for you. We will look at how the fish was caught, how much of that fish is available in the world, what the impacts of removing that fish from the ecosystem would be. We will take all of that into account, and then we will determine, okay, is this a sustainable fish option for the public right now, or is it maybe a little bit risky, and is it going to hurt the ocean? If it's a good option, if it's not going to have too much of an impact, say there's a lot of that fish, it's not going to have too big of an impact on the ecosystem, then we will label it as sustainable. It'll get the stamp of approval from Oceanwise, and we will recommend it sustainable option. But if it's the opposite, if there aren't a lot of that fish, if it's being overfished right now, if removing it is going to hurt the habitat or the ecosystem, then we will not label it as sustainable. And that means you should probably avoid it. So that's what sustainable seafood can look like. Just do the research, look at what's popular right now, look at what's local and thriving, and consume those types of fish.
I've seen the Oceanwise label in restaurants. I've seen it in grocery stores. In the United States, the Monterey Bay Aquarium it's Sea-Watch. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. So there's a program in both countries that really helps you. They do the research for you. And helps you make sustainable choices for fisheries. So please do take that in mind when you're going to get your next fish, wherever that may be. Great question, guys. All right, Miss Cullen's class. We're gonna head to you guys. Come on in, Jerusalem Elementary, and take us away. Hey.
We just have one good question.
What's the difference between global warming and climate change?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a great question. So global warming is actually a part of climate change. And climate change is kind of like global warming. Imagine climate change is kind of like the big overarching theme. And then there's like types of climate change. Global warming will be a type of climate change. So global warming is something that we were talking a lot about early in like the 90s, in the early 2000s, where we were saying, oh my God, the planet is heating up and everything is melting and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. But the reality is that with climate change, it's not just getting hotter, it's also getting way colder as well. It's also getting way windier. There are really big dramatic changes. So global warming is an element of climate change, the same way that, ice storms are an element of climate change. So they're both hand in hand, but global warming is more of like our theme of climate change.
And I want to stress, like globally, the weather is heating. We are having increased temperatures around the world of over a degree at this point, and we're trying to make sure that we minimize that sort of total global heating, which is why climate change originally went by global warming so prevalently. But we'll have it where there's major droughts or major floods or major heating. The weather's shifting all around this planet. The climate is shifting all around this planet. That's why it's sort of all encompassing nowadays. We talk about it as climate change. But we've all seen this with our own eyes. And I always like to highlight for kids too. You don't just need an expert like the Oceanwise team to tell you this. I encourage you, ask your teachers, ask your parents what the weather was like when they were kids. Even when I was your age, literally 20 years ago, the weather was wildly different in Toronto where I grew up than it is now. And that's been a huge shift in my lifetime. So do check into that, talk to people in your life. And I love that that's our question. Thanks, Miss Cullen's class. All right, Westfield Central, our New York crew, they've got a bunch of questions. Where is all the trash in the ocean? So when we talk about all the things that we put out there, is there a place that it lives? Is it everywhere? What's the deal?
Ooh, so where does the plastic go? So a lot of our plastic, even on land, ends up in the ocean. And where exactly in the ocean does it go? Great question. I actually have a link I would love to share with you all. It's from the Ocean Cleanup, and it's called the Plastics Tracker. I'm just going to drop it in the chat here. And just if you want to share it with folks later, go ahead. This is a really fun way to track where the plastic in your region would end up in the ocean. So because of different weather patterns, different, currents and stuff in the ocean, a lot of our plastic ends up in two different garbage patches. We have the Pacific, or the Atlantic garbage patch. And it's this giant patch of garbage where essentially, because of the way that water flows and the ocean currents, a lot of it ends up in that one place. And now there's a giant island of plastic in the middle of our ocean that is essentially larger than even a couple states in the United States combined. You could literally drive a car across it. It is so massive. So that is where a lot of the plastic is unfortunately ending up at the surface of the ocean, a lot of the plastic is also ending up in the deep sea. Different exploration vessels like the EV Nautilus, which are deep sea exploration vehicles that have, in the deepest part of the ocean, they're finding plastic in parts where, they haven't seen any life, but they're finding plastic there. And a lot of animals are consuming plastic as well. So those are like 3 places that trash is ending up in the ocean. Jesse's kind of simulating it right now.
Yeah, so I just picked Toronto as an example, but you can see that it goes through the Great Lakes, up the St. Lawrence River, it empties out into the Atlantic right near me in Newfoundland, and then gets caught in these inter-ocean currents and travels around the Atlantic Ocean and beyond. So that's the importance of plastic pollution, is that if you're in Saskatchewan, if you're in Iowa, if you're in the middle of a continent, the waste you produce can make its way to the ocean, and then the oceans are interconnected. We've had ships drop rubber ducks by accident off their vessel, and those rubber ducks end up in every ocean of the world within like 20 years, which is astonishing because water on this planet is linked. So whatever we do locally really does have a global impact, and it's why plastic pollution is such an important thing to tackle, and it's why it's something that, frankly, pretty much everyone is on board on trying to fix as an issue. So I love that we got that question. Thanks, guys. All right, we've got a few more we're going to take before we wrap up. Time flies when you're having fun. We've got a lot on endangered fish. What are some endangered fish? Are there any species that are having real challenges? We actually did a program on sawfish yesterday, which are endangered, but anything else you'd like to share? Take us away.
Sawfish are so cool. Okay, so for folks who don't know what endangered means, endangered essentially means that this is an animal that has really, really reduced in population. So that means that there aren't a lot of them left, or their population is threatened. Okay, so these can include different ocean animals like, sea turtles. A lot of whale species have been known to be critically endangered as well, but they are making a comeback, which is great. A lot of dolphins, sharks are critically endangered as well. Yep, I see people in the chat coming in with sea turtles. Seals endangered. Killer whales are endangered. There's a lot of different fish, like even salmon, which is a really popular fish that folks like to eat. A lot of species of salmon are critically endangered as well. So those are just a couple.
We've got so many things coming in the chat. There's like more questions than we could possibly take in a broadcast. You guys are great. I want to briefly go back to the plastic thing too, because we've actually done broadcasts with research vessels like the Nautilus out in the middle of the ocean. The deepest points of the ocean have plastic. The most remote islands in the Pacific have plastic on them. Antarctica has plastic that's melting into the ice. Like, this has become a really big issue. It's a garbage truck a minute. Something like that is our rate of trash that goes into the ocean. So, in fact, Westfield Central, you just asked that. It's an absurd amount of plastic that we put in. And so a question we got online is, how do we stop that plastic from getting in? A lot of kids are talking about, don't throw something out your window. And that's true. Is there a sort of larger, more effective method we can think of as civilization for preventing plastic from getting in the water?
Yeah, that's a great prompt, Jesse. Thank you so much. So one thing that we can do is reduce the amount of plastic that we're using. So again, I know it's really, really hard because we're all students and a lot of our food comes plastic wrapped, right? But maybe trying to buy products or different food materials or snacks that maybe don't come in as much plastic wrapping or plastic packaging. So reducing the amount of plastic that we use. That includes the clothing that we buy, being more mindful of the clothing that we're buying and plastic is contained in them can really reduce the amount of plastic that enters our ocean as well. So reducing the amount of plastic that we buy, even reusing plastic, right? There's so many ways that you can get creative. I know I have friends who use plastic water bottles. They cut them and they turn them into plant holders, right? So you can get really creative with the plastic that you have and how you want to reuse that plastic and keep it at home as well, instead of just getting rid of it. When we recycle our plastic, it's also really important that we clean our plastic. So make sure you give your plastic containers a rinse before you recycle it, because if it's contaminated, it might not get recycled. So if you are recycling, that's wonderful, but make sure you're recycling correctly as well.
Fantastic. Again, the nice thing about Ocean Wise is that every broadcast we do, whether it's Arctic or coral or sharks, we have these messages on things that you guys can do at home. And I really do encourage you. I send along the PDF of all the e-cards. Please take the opportunity to do that. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you can do to help the ocean. We are coming near the end of the program. So what I want to do is, if there's any final message that you want to share with our kids about Ocean Wise, about being a change maker, anything to leave us with today, go for it and take us away.
Yes, my friends. I first of all want to thank you all again for joining today's program. And if you were able to join any of our previous sessions, thank you as well. We hope you had fun. We hope you learned something new. And we hope you feel motivated to go out and be a change maker yourself. There is so much positive news. I know it's really, really scary right now when we talk about climate change. It can be really, really overwhelming at times as well. But there's so much positive news and positive change coming out from, eco activism. So you can be a part of it as well by just raising your voice and talking to your friends about it. There's so much hope, whether you want to be a scientist and anything you want to be, you can do it if you try really, really hard, and you can be part of the change that you want to see as well. So thank you all so much for asking these amazing questions and taking part in these programs. I advise you all to stay curious and keep asking these questions, and hopefully we all see you soon.
No better message than that. Do check out the entire Oceanwide series on our YouTube channel. We have a whole playlist for it. There's lots to explore and discover there. So much learning to keep going. And I just want to thank our audience joining in all across the continent today. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye for now, guys. Thank you so much.